How are you going to build a water treatment plant in a town of 400 if you don't have a collective effort at it? So I have to tell you, they scream socialism. We just build roads and we build schools and we build prosperity into this. Their whole plan is to go backwards, to give tax cuts to the wealthy. And look, it was so surprising. You know, these super successful Donald Trump who inherited $400 million and then proceeded to fail at everything.
Minnesota Governor Tim Walz has largely been left out of the Veepstakes conversation, but it looks like that might be changing. He's been taking it to Republicans in media appearances and, without actually saying it, making a pretty clear case he'd be interested in being Kamala Harris's vice president. Take a look.
Name obviously has come up as a possible running mate for VP Harris. A, do you want the job? And B, how does all of this feel?
It is humbling. It's a privilege. It's surreal. Just to be a part of this, I'm all in. I'm all in on this positive future. I'm all in that we can heal some of these rifts. And I think you saw it. You saw soon-to-be President Harris exhibit all those qualities and a grace that America is so hungry for. So I can't tell you. I'm just excited. I'm excited to be here. I've never felt this energy in an awful long time.
According to 4 union officials and a political consultant, Walz has emerged among labor unions as a popular pick to join Kamala Harris on the Democratic ticket. He's a former public school teacher and union member himself and has a record of pro-worker legislation. Last year, Minnesota established paid sick and medical leave, banned non-compete agreements, expanded protections for Amazon warehouse workers, and much more. And in May, Minnesota enacted a measure providing a raise for Uber and Lyft drivers. Steve Rosenthal, president of the political consulting firm The Organizing Group, says people are high on Walz. People in the labor movement would be very comfortable with him. Sarah Nelson, president of the Association of Flight Attendants, says that she considers Walz to be one of the top 2 candidates for the vice presidential nod, with Andy Beshear being the other. Walz got the workers from Uber involved before passing the bill to support workers' rights in the gig economy. That trust of workers and that understanding of the engagement of working people is absolutely something we're looking for. It makes a lot of sense to lean in harder on workers' rights when the MAGA talking points are trying to say they are for working people. Representative Pramila Jayapal said on Thursday that she favors him for the vice presidential nomination. And aside from his solid pro-labor record, he's proving himself to be an effective communicator during media interviews like this moment, where he went after JD Vance for claiming to be a small town guy with populist ideals. Take a look.
What I know is that people like JD Vance know nothing about small town America. Look, I grew up in a town of 400 people, 24 kids in my graduating class, 12 were cousins. The things that make small towns work are good public schools. Things that work about being good to your neighbors and helping out. And the golden rule of a small town, mind your own damn business. He wants to be in our exam rooms. They want to come and try and tell us they want to privatize our public schools. You think you're going to find a private school in a town of 400? These are absolute policies. His robber baron mentality as a venture capitalist gutted middle America. My dad dies when my little brother's young. We're teenagers. We get Social Security survivor benefits. I'm all for pulling yourself up by your bootstraps. We didn't have any boots. Social Security was the boots, and we pulled ourselves up and we paid that back. And I think JD Vance gets none of that. You know, it's the aw shucks, I'm from here or whatever. So my hillbilly cousins did not go to Yale, but I'll tell you what they did. They contributed to our community and they're proud of it.
Anna, I'm so curious what you think here. He seems like the perfect counterbalance to JD Vance's narrative. He seems like he could just decimate Vance in a debate. What do you think?
Hey, don't scroll away. Come back. Because before the video continues, we just want to urge you to lend your support to TYT. You power our honest reporting. You do it at tyt.com/team, and we love you for it.
I think it's incredibly important for Democrats to reposition themselves and rebrand themselves, not as the party that represents the hyper-educated elite, but the party that represents workers in America, that wants to improve the lives of ordinary people in America. I think Walz would actually be an excellent VP pick for Kamala Harris. What I've been worrying about this week is the framing of Kamala Harris in the media as far more business friendly compared to Trump. I don't know if you've been seeing those interviews this week, Jordan, but I hate that. Like, I don't want that. You know, the idea that Kamala Harris is going to come in, first thing she's going to do is fire FTC chair Lena Khan, who's been excellent in preventing, monopolies and mergers from taking place during the Biden administration. The idea that she's going to take, millions of dollars from billionaire donors and essentially do as they wish when it comes to deregulation and keeping the tax cuts where they are, that worries me. And then when you have someone like JD Vance, pay lip service to labor, but I still question how real that is, right? Now, everyone should be questioning how real that is. It would be helpful if Kamala Harris chooses someone who centers their political identity on labor. That's appealing to people, especially at a time when economic frustration that Americans are feeling is really across the board, left and right. It has to do with inflation, of course, but it also has to do with the fact that wages haven't kept up with inflation since the 1970s. So someone who not only talks the talk, but walks the walk would be an excellent VP pick, if you ask me.
Yeah, I think Walz is actually the pick. And I don't even think there's a competition, but she just needs to stay where he is. Roy Cooper is a trash for candidate. He is the North Carolina version of JD Vance. He has no spine. I'm speaking from personal experience as a mayor in North Carolina. But I also think the reason Walz is actually suited is because the way he can take politics and make it seem like something that middle class white folk are going through is magical to me. I watch him do things that people are missing cues to people that JD is brought on to bring in. Like when he said, "My hillbilly cousin, he's talking." That is a shot at JD's book and also introduction to the world. Like, you are not one of us. When he say you shucks, he's saying that he's trying to talk like us, but he's not like us. And that is a beautiful signal that most people in media missed. And it also speaks directly to folk who know JD Vance with his Yale degree and also venture capitalist lifestyle is not like them at all. They know that, and they are just signaling, waiting for someone to remind them that this ain't it, dog. And I think Walz does a wonderful job at that.
Yeah, Anna, your point about the Democratic Party repositioning themselves as the party of workers is really important. And that is something that has left a lot of people, myself included, feeling disillusioned with the party for a very long time. I mean, what we understood the Democratic Party to be in years past was the party of unions, was the party of workers. And during election cycles, election years, they'll pretend to be. And sure, Biden's Department of Labor was better than Obama's and better than Clinton's, but it's still, we still have a long way to go to get fair pay, to get a living wage for everybody, to help address all of these other conditions that affect working people beyond just salary and compensation. And I think one thing that Walz did that was really impressive, that I wish every state had or we had nationally, was free school lunches. I mean, what better way to double down on your pro-worker stance and say, not only will we take care of you, we're gonna take care of your kids. You're not gonna have to worry about paying for lunch for your kids at school. The immediate impact that would have on millions of working families nationwide, they would see a direct impact. They would understand the consequences. They could just look at their budget. You're talking about kitchen table issues being the key to all these election cycles. They would see it immediately. It's tangible rather than, oh, well, you're gonna get a tax credit if you buy an EV. That doesn't motivate voters. Hey, you're not gonna have to pay an extra 20, 30 bucks a month or more if you have more children for lunches at schools. It's just immediate cost savings in a very real and tangible way that I love that program, and I wish we had that nationwide.
Yeah, I want to weigh in on that in a second, but first I want to give Mondale a lot of credit for pointing to something that I myself missed, because I think you're absolutely right. I mean, I think the rhetoric that Walz uses is specifically meant to appeal to the very people that Vance is trying to drag into the Republican Party. So excellent point, and now I'm going to watch out for that every time he speaks. But to your point, Jordan, when I was in elementary school, my father, who was working for a welding company, lost his job. The company moved abroad, and so for the first time, my family was very unstable economically speaking, and I qualified for the school lunch, and it was so important in not only lifting a little bit of this financial burden and stress off my parents' backs, but it was so important in ensuring that I'm fed and I'm ready to learn, right? That I'm not in class starving because my parents couldn't afford to pack a lunch for me or to give me money to buy a lunch at the school cafeteria. Look, I just think that the biggest frustration I've had with our politics, and yes, that includes the Democratic Party, is that these very simple sounding policies that they used to champion, they had moved away from. And I think that the backlash that Hillary Clinton experienced in 2016 was partly due to the fact that working class Americans increasingly felt abandoned by the Democratic Party, while the Democratic Party was simultaneously still using the same pro-worker rhetoric. So what I like about Walz is that it's not just rhetoric. Okay, you could look at his record in Minnesota and you can see that he's actually enacted these policies that would be tremendously helpful to working class Americans all across the country. I think that kind of messaging is important. I think it'll help counterbalance some of what we're seeing in the news right now about moneyed interest trying to influence Kamala Harris. I think it would be a smart pick, but we'll see what happens.
Well, like as someone who's a practitioner of politics for the past 20 years, electoral politics, electing people, 165 plus campaign. I would say that, sometimes we give too much credit to candidates. The work of turning out voters and expanding the electorate is not the work of candidates. Most voters don't even trust parties, regardless of which one it is. What happens is if the programs or trusted messengers are fully funded so they can do that work, and also turn out voters, I think it's a better effort. So what I'm nervous about right now is people saying this massive amount of money going to the Kamala Harris campaign, and people associating that with excitement beyond the political class and people who can't really afford to do that, and then taking these demographics. We were talking about affinity groups earlier, taking these demographics and assuming that all black men are already lined up and that there's no competition or nothing, that we need to work on all white men are all lined up, all white women, all black women. And I'm a little afraid about that. The comfortability of folk believing that because you see this large amount of money, this energy around these affinity groups, that it is representative of those folk who are actually struggling to make ends meet throughout this campaign cycle. And I tell people all the time, regardless of what Republicans are doing to block people, black and brown people, from going to the polls, every time you see Republicans put up barriers, you see more black and brown people show up at the polls. So what people aren't talking about is the real driver of voter suppression, which is poverty. And I think Walz can speak to that in a way with the record, like you said, Hannah, that most politicians don't have.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks. Really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.